one thing we want to do this evening is to establish a better understanding of how scholarships work. We want to build upon the insights that you gained from the previous session. I'm going to walk you through the role of scholarship documentation. We're going to be talking about how to assemble your documentations properly. And finally, one goal of mine is to motivate and inspire you for the next session. So, session content. What are the things we are about to talk about this evening? For instance, we have your curriculum vitae, which is the CV, your academic transcripts, your academic certificates, which you have your degree, your diploma, and your HND. Then we have statement of purpose and personal statements, English proficiency tests and other tests, then recommendation letters as well. Then we would now move on to general documentation tips. So these tips are just for everybody. Like generally, these are things you should have at the back of your mind. One important tip for your documentation is that you need to use the same names on all your documents. This is very, very important, or you would have to go through the process of proving that you actually were awarded the degree which has your names. So if you have 3 names, please use 3 names on all your documents, your application. If you have 2 names, make sure that it's the same name that's on your passport, your certificate, anything that concerns you. Those names that you have, or 2 or 3 or 4 names, should be the ones you use going forward. Then 2, please make sure to scan all your documents into a safe place. So this could mean that it could be on a pen drive, it could be on your laptop, but the most secure places you could ever put your scanned documents is send yourself an email with your documents, and it's in your documents, your email forever. Unless you forget your password, then I'm sorry. You could also upload it into a cloud service. So you have your Google Drive and other cloud services. And please make sure to keep the original safe. Okay, please make sure to keep the original safe. Please keep them in a safe place that would protect how they look, the state in which they are. Then finally, the preferred ID documentation is a passport. It's basically step 1. So I'm going to issue this disclaimer as well. If you are on this call or on this Zoom, or you are watching us from Facebook, and you want to win a scholarship, and you've not applied for a passport, or you don't have a passport, I'm sorry, I would have to ask you to leave this call and start the process right away. It is very, very important that you secure your passport, because if you should get the opportunity now, they are not going to wait for you to apply for a passport and get it. And if you are coming from a country that things move quite slowly, that's even worse. If it will take you 3 months, 6 months to secure your passport, and you get a scholarship and they are asking you to send your passport so that they can process your documents, and you are now going to apply for a passport, it is the worst thing you can ever do to yourself. And if you already have a passport, please make sure to take a look at the expiry dates. The moment you realize that it has like 6 months to expire, start the process immediately to renew your passport. I hope that is clear. So now let's move on. So now let's talk about CVs. Okay. I'm sure we all know what CVs are. Okay. Most often than not, the term CV is used in Africa, Europe, and Australia and Asia. But the content is very similar to what we call a resume in the US. Okay. So for CVs or resumes, we have the academic and the professional formats, which work simultaneously. What we mean by simultaneously is that unless specified, some scholarship or schools where you request for admission would accept any form of CV that you send to them. But specifically, like the Erasmus Mundus has their own formats that they would ask you to put your CV in. So that one, we can call it an academic CV. So now let me talk about what a resume is. How do you know that this is a resume and this is a CV? A resume is generally required for industry. So this is like more professional, okay? It's for non-university positions. So if you are going to find a job, normally they ask you to submit a resume. Some interchange it and say CV. It is the same thing, but it's used differently in different places. So please don't feel like you don't have, when you have a CV and they ask for a resume, don't get confused. Another thing about a resume is that a resume normally is short, 1 or 2 pages, because it's for professional purposes. So assuming you apply for a job and people are submitting resumes that are like 5 pages long, how long or how would the employer be able to go through all those long CVs to find who they would like to work with? So normally the resume is quite short and it highlights your education, your work experience, your relevant skills, and some additional things. Then the CV, or what we call the academic CV, tends to be required for positions in academia. So your colleges and your universities, as well as research and scientific facilities. Okay, so an academic CV can be requested by any institution. Like if you're applying for a scholarship, they could specify and say, please give us an academic CV. Or they could just say, just send us your CV and that would be it. Then another thing you need to bear in mind is please pay attention to the scholarship's choice of formats. So like I said, a scholarship like Erasmus Mundus specifically has its own format. Even if your CV is an academic CV, they have their own format or template that you will have to download and fill in with your details, okay? Then research summary versus action and results approach. So there are 2 approaches here to a CV or resume. So because a CV or an academic CV is much more education focused, you would have to sometimes prioritize your research or your educational achievements than your, let's say, professional achievements or your work experience. But if your research experience and your work experience happen to be the same thing, let's say you're a researcher, you're allowed to put them at the same place like your work experience because you are doing already, it's research based. Then the action and result approach is normally for professional formats or the resume. So when I say the action and result approach, I mean, let's say you work as a storekeeper. Please don't write arranged or took stock. No. You need to write it in such a way that it showed what you did and the results that came out of it, okay? So you can say, instead of arranged stock, you can say developed a stock keeping system that resulted in 50% or it resulted in quick restocking levels or like restocking monitoring. So basically you are just saying that you design a system in which you were stocking the items in a shop, in a store, in a facility in such a way that the moment one item becomes low or majority has been sold, you are able to know that, okay, this item needs to be replenished or restocked, basically. So you need to put concrete results. So you have your numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you did something and it resulted in 5 new accounts. You did something and it resulted in, let's say, 50% growth in profits, basically. Then another thing you need to take a look at when you're looking at your CV is the content of the academic CV versus a professional CV. So when I mean by the content of an academic CV and a professional CV, this is what you can see on your screen. So you can see the academic formats, some of the things you should include or prioritize. Then you can see the professional formats, some of the things you should include or prioritize. So for the academic, you can see it's much more education focused. You have your research objective, okay? You have your education. Where did you school? Where did you get your qualification? Your publications, your awards, honors, grants, fellowships, conferences you've attended, your teaching or research experience, additional skills, languages and skills, then you have your references. You don't need to follow this format perfectly, but I'm just giving you a general idea of how an academic CV should look. Then we have the professional format. So the professional format, yes, you need your contact information as well. Then instead of research objective, normally you write a personal profile, a summary about yourself, or career objective. What do you look to become as a professional? Like if you are in, let's say, the banking industry, you could write something like, I'm looking to become a middle level manager in the next 5 years. So those are objectives that you have for yourself. Then your work experience comes before your education because you're looking for work. So that's what you should prioritize before where you went to school. Then you should also include your professional certifications and qualifications, your skills and expertise. So this basically means if there are any softwares, tools that make your work or are used in your industry, this is where you actually highlight your proficiency in them or how long you've been using them. Then additional activities. This is where some people add some things. It could be your passions, your volunteering, opportunities that you've had. Then finally, your references. So we move on to academic transcript. So we are done with the CV, okay? If you have any questions, I would answer them at the end of the call or at the end of my presentation. So then we have transcripts, academic transcripts. Your transcripts are an indication of your academic performance along with an overall prediction of how well you will do in the future or your future performance, okay? And you have to understand that we have official and unofficial transcripts, okay? An official transcript is your transcript printed by your school on official paper, sealed in an envelope, stamped with the school's official seal, signed by the registrar, okay? This ensures that the transcript has not been tampered with, and this is the true and official document. So when you say official transcripts, it means that at the end of your 4-year course, at the end of your 2-year HND, these are the grades that you got. And this is the certificate or the transcript that the school issued to you. So the original, you need to scan the original. And normally you will see that it has like, normally it's not white. Some are yellow, some are blue, because they are official and they have the school logo. And when you see the original, you know that this is an official transcript, okay? Then what is an unofficial transcript? An unofficial transcript is a list of coursework and grades which can be at times viewed online. So I'm sure most of you, if you are in school or you used to be in school, I'm sure you normally had like a portal, an online portal where you could go and check your grades and see how you are doing and so on and so forth. If in case you are not done with school and you print out any of your grades, you can say that that one is an unofficial transcript, okay? You've not finished the degree. Unofficially, the school has not awarded you with your results. So it could change, basically. That's what it means. Official transcripts would never change unless you are going to challenge some grades that you had in the past. But unofficial transcripts can change by the time you finish school because some grades might be revised, the marking scheme might be changed. It happens that grades are changed, okay? Then how do you get your official transcripts? You can get your official transcript by going to your school. You need to request for your official transcripts from your academic office. And mostly that is the way by which you can get a hold of your official transcript. You can't get it online. You would need to apply. Sometimes you need to pay a fee. It depends on your school. So if you are here and you don't have your transcripts, please make sure that you go and find, or you go and change, or you go and get your transcript. If you are here and you are still in school as well, and you don't have an official transcript and you still want to apply for scholarships, please do not worry. Some scholarship or some schools accept unofficial transcripts as placeholders. So when I say placeholders, it means that they would accept it under the condition that when you finally get your official transcript, you would submit it or you send it to them or you provide it to them, basically. So now, let's talk about the confirmation of grades. So you have your GPA, your F GPA, or your C GPA versus the CWA. So all of these acronyms I'm throwing around basically are grade classifications, basically, okay? So GPA, as we know, is the grade point average. F GPA is the final grade point average. And C GPA is the cumulative grade point average. They are all basically the same thing, but are used differently in different schools, okay? So the school I attended uses CGPA. Legon or some schools in Ghana use FGPA, okay? Then we have the cumulative weighted average, which is the CWA. I'm sure there are people from other countries joining us, and I'm sure it's possible that you may have your grades calculated in the CWA, okay? So we are going to take a look at how to convert your GPA to CWA and convert your CWA to GPA in case a scholarship or a school asks for it. But normally, your transcripts will have, let's say, an explanation. Normally, when you turn the back of the transcript, or sometimes it's on the transcript, it has an explanation of how the grades were calculated. So when you submit all of those things, sometimes you don't need to do the conversion. They will check and do it themselves and see where you fall. But for instance, if someone asks you, you have a GPA, but you don't have a CWA, and someone asks, or it is a question you need to fill in a scholarship admission or scholarship application form, this is a way so that you can quickly know what grade or what range to put as your CWA. So how do you convert CWA to GPA? Okay. First, you start by dividing your marks by 100. Okay, essentially converting them into percentages. And if for example, if you have a CWA of 83, okay, and mind you, CWA is calculated in percentages, not points. So GPA is points. So you have 3.2, 4.0, 5.0, and so on and so forth. But CWA is calculated, let's say 70%, 80%, 90%, 60%. That's how it's calculated. So bear in mind. You divide it by 100 to obtain 0.383. Multiply the result by 4. This step is done since you are doing a conversion into a 4.0 points GPA. For example, should we multiply 0.83 by 4 to obtain 3.2, which could also be referred to as 3.3? The figure obtained after the multiplication is the GPA, or grade point average. So for example, if you have 83 marks in CWA, we can say you have a 3.3 GPA, which is basically a second class upper. Awesome. So now how do you calculate GPA to CWA? Okay, so you take your 4-point GPA and divide it by 4. Okay, and that will give you a decimal. Okay, so as you can see from what we did from the previous one, the other one you would divide. This one you multiply by 100. So for the GPA to CWA, you multiply by 100. And if you have a CWA of 87.5, multiplying by, which becomes 8.70 by 100. That is what it means if you have a GPA or a CWA of 0.875. Okay. Now, I hope this part is clear. Please don't fret if you don't get this. Most of the times you would not have to go through this, but this is an informational session. So we wanted to provide this for you. In case you still do not understand and you want to know, this session is being recorded. So we would make the recordings available for you to rewatch anything that you miss. All right. So now let's take a look at the degree classifications under the CWA grading. So like I mentioned, it's calculated in percentages. So when you have a first class, it is assumed that you scored from 70 and above, or 70 to 100. If you have a second class upper, it means that you scored from 60% to 69%, or 69.99%. If you scored a second class lower, we would say that is 50% to 59.99%. If you scored a pass, we would say that's a 40 to 49.99% as well. Now let's look at the GPA classification. So for the GPA or CGPA or FGPA, a first class is normally between 0.64 to 4, okay, 4.00. A second class upper division or upper is 3.00 to 3.59. Second class lower is from 2 to 2.99. Okay. Then third class, you have your 1.5 to 1.99. Then pass is from 1 to 1.49. Then fail, or which is basically no award, is 0.00 to less than 1. Then that concludes the bits on transcripts. So we've just gone through the CVs and we've gone through the transcripts. Now let's look at academic certificates, okay? So when we talk about academic certificates, this is where you have your diploma, your HND, which is the higher national diploma, and of course, the undergrad or master's degree, okay? So there are scholarships for all educational milestones. Degree is just the most popular one, okay? What do I mean by this? What I mean is that whether you have a diploma or you have a higher national diploma or an undergrad degree or master's degree, there's a scholarship for everyone. Just that some are limited and the degree happens to be the most popular one. So people with degrees happen to have more scholarships available to them. But there are scholarships and there are admissions available for people with diploma and HND. Okay, we'll get more into that later. Admission is also possible for all types of certificates. Just as there are scholarships for all types of certificates, there are admissions as well. So now let's take a look at something here when it comes to your certificates. In case you hear anywhere that we want a first class degree or something, or first or one, a 1.0 degree, it means first class. And this is really popular in the UK, okay? So UK schools will tell you, you need to have a 2.1 degree. What a 2.1 degree basically means is that you should have a second class upper degree. A 2.2 is a second class lower degree. And a 3 or 3.0 or a third class is basically third class, as I just mentioned. And you can see from the screen the percentages of how they are calculated. Please mute yourself if you are on mute so that we don't get feedback, so that others can hear what I'm saying. Now, let's take a look at something when it comes to your certificates. So as you can see, countries that accept HNDs, countries that accept lower, second class, lower, countries that allow you to move with your family immediately, and countries that don't require IELTS, then cheap migration choices. On the right, you can see UK schools accepting HND. So if you have an HND and you are having trouble finding admission, these are 7 schools basically that would accept HND to do a degree sometimes, and even sometimes to do a master's. It depends on the school and what they require or what they allow. So you would have to go and check out these schools, and they are in the UK, the ones on the right. Then for the information on the left, which is about the countries that accept HNDs, I will paste, it's a link to a YouTube video recorded by Waka Waka Doctor _Doctor. In scholarships, we try to help everybody. Sometimes we don't have all the videos, so you are allowed to follow all the scholarship agents or anyone who helps a scholarship. You don't need to follow just DYG, okay? And that would really, really go a long way to help you. Then we also have something from D1, which says the following 15 universities in the UK accept third class for a master's. So if you are here and you have a third class or upper or higher, so if you have a third class or going up and you want to study in the UK, these schools accept third class as well. Just that sometimes they would ask you to do something extra, because if you had a third class, it does not mean that you're not a good student, but it may be an indication of what kind of student you are. So sometimes they will ask you to submit more documents than someone with a higher degree would submit, but all the same, there's an opportunity for you. So again, take a minute to take a look at these schools. You will get the recording as well, so you can see the schools better in the recording. But if you want to take a moment and read what is on the screen, please go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take a 30 seconds to allow you to do that so that I can move on.